Welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. I'm Joe, and I am so happy you're here. This is the place where book lovers, authors, and industry insiders come together to talk about the stories we love and the impact they have. Before we dive in, don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to the Libby app YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Yes, we have audio and video for you. If you love what we're doing, leave a review or drop a comment. It helps more book lovers find us. Questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, you can email bookloungebyLibby@overdrive.com. With that, I cannot wait to dive into today's episode. Today, we are celebrating International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, which takes place on August 9th. From the United Nations, I'm going to be quoting here, and this is linked in the show notes. There are an estimated 476 million Indigenous peoples in the world living across 90 countries. They make up less than 6% of the world's population, but account for at least 15% of the poorest. They speak an overwhelming majority of the world's estimated 7,000 languages and represent 5,000 different cultures. Indigenous peoples are inheritors and practitioners of unique cultures and ways of relating to people and the environment. They have retained social, cultural, economic, and political characteristics that are distinct from those of the dominant societies in which they live. Despite their cultural differences, Indigenous peoples from around the world share common problems related to the protection of their rights as distinct peoples. Indigenous peoples have sought recognition of their identities, their way of life, and their right to traditional lands, territories, and national resources for years. Yet, throughout history, their rights have been violated. Indigenous peoples today are arguably among the most disadvantaged and vulnerable groups of people in the world. The international community now recognizes that special measures are required to protect their rights and maintain their distinct cultures and way of life. In order to raise awareness of the needs of these population groups, every August 9th commemorates the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, chosen in recognition of the first meeting of the UN Working Group on Indigenous Peoples held in Geneva in 1982. In the US and Canada, that's the end of the quote there, but in the US and Canada, groups like Indigenous Reads Rising work to center and celebrate Indigenous children's literature in Native nations. Linked in the show notes, but less than 2% of children's books published in the United States depict characters from Native, First Nations, and Indigenous communities, according to 2019 stats compiled by the Cooperative Children's Book Center at the University of Wisconsin. Indigenous Reads Rising was founded with teachers and librarians in mind, but every reader is welcome to explore their resources and book lists. The site is managed by the nonprofit We Need Diverse Books. Now, today in our first segment, I am joined by Angeline Boulley and Carole Lindstrom to talk about their experiences as Indigenous authors. Angeline Boulley, an enrolled member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, is a storyteller who writes about her Ojibwe community in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. She is a former director of the Office of Indian Education at the U.S. Department of Education. Angeline lives in Southwest Michigan, but her home will always be on Sugar Island. Firekeeper's Daughter is her debut novel and was an instant #1 New York Times bestseller. Her new book, Sisters in the Wind, will be out September 2nd, 2025, from Henry Holt & Company. You can find Angeline on Instagram at Angeline Boulley. Carole Lindstrom is a New York Times bestselling and award-winning author of literature for young people, including the Caldecott Medal-winning We Are Water Protectors. She is Anishinaabe Métis and an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe. She is honored to write books that allow her to shine a light on her beautiful people and their strength and resilience. Her tribal homelands are in Belcourt, North Dakota, but she was born and raised in Nebraska and currently makes her home in Maryland. Carole has been a voracious reader and library geek ever since she was growing up in Nebraska. On weekends, you could usually find her at the library, lost in the book stacks, or holed up in her bedroom with a good book. It wasn't until she had her son that she discovered her love of writing for children and began to work seriously on her writing. Carole is on Instagram at Carole Lindstrom. You can find both of them linked in the show notes. And make sure you visit LibbyLife.com for our Libby Life exclusive for this episode. Is an absolutely beautiful message. So finish watching this episode and then go check out Libby Life for that exclusive. With that, let's turn the page and dive on in. Well, welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. Excited to be here.
Very glad.
I appreciate you both so much for being here to share your stories. I am so grateful to get to take this moment for me to learn and to share with the audience about the breadth of Indigenous storytelling, and there are so many cultural forces behind what both of you do. And I would love to dive into that today. First off, I wanted to look at the role of storytelling in Indigenous culture. From my knowledge, I know there is a power in kind of like an oral tradition, but I would love to know what both of you think as far as like storytelling as a function within culture and heritage, and if there are any common themes from both like long running stories and then how you find that yourselves and others include like themes that you include in your writing.
Carole and I are both Chippewa. I'm from Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. We call ourselves Anishinaabe or Ojibwe. And Carole's from another state, other part of the country, but so we might have some similarities, being that we're both Chippewa. Storytelling is survival. And, in the teaching, the way I heard it, that's exactly what we say with our teachings. It's like, well, the way I heard it was this. And, and so you always hear the little variations of things because great storytellers don't repeat the exact you can't tell the same story the same way. It changes, it lives, it breathes, it adapts, the speaker plays off of the audience, and so storytelling is an art form, um, but also Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Storytelling is survival. And so that's how I'll just start this off. And yes, I come from storytelling people. And we even had certain stories that we're not supposed to tell, um, except for in the wintertime. Because, as our culture, as we survived, there were times for, the subsistence, the gathering, the storing, the preparing for winter. And then winter was kind of this pause, but a lot of important things happened in the lodge, and that was certain storytelling. So that's yep.
I love the way I heard it was, but I think that's really fun to put it way too simply, but also the seasonal nature, the idea of like we don't do this out of respect and also out of practice because there are either things that need to happen this time instead or different stories to uplift at the time, perhaps.
Mhm. Yes, and I think exactly what Angeline said, I think the living part of it is so important. Storytelling, that there's so much in that, especially when you don't, like how to sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes there's things you need to be concerned about as a safety measure is for children, but it's told through story. And I feel for me as an author, I feel that's how readers, maybe that's because of that's how I was raised and it's innate and that's the but, I think story is always how you remember what any story I write, I there's always truth in it and facts, but I don't think children necessarily, young ones really care about those things or they don't dates and all that stuff. They wanna hear a good story, and that story will stick with them. It's innate in them to protect and to, want to have equality for everyone. They don't understand why everyone doesn't have what they have. So, just telling a story in that way, it retains in them so much more than saying things to them. Well, it's important that we treat everybody the same. That is not really I don't believe as a child and having had a child myself that's how it sinks in. I think those stories are how those messages get through, and that we as parents who and our ancestors who told them, we thought they told stories, but they knew darn well that those stories were going to like the Rougarou, that was always something my mom told me about, the spooky stuff, like, "Get upstairs right now, it's time for dinner," and I'm like, "Nah, well, my brother and me are playing in the basement." "I saw the Rougarou downstairs, boom." I'm like, "Ah, okay, where is that dinner?"
Uh,
It just takes stories like that to
to just go, okay, we're ready to eat, we're ready to
yeah,
listen,
we're
we're
ready to
ready to
listen now, right. Yes.
And Angeline, to your point earlier as well, and Carol, I think you said it too, survival. It's not just the function of like, oh, learn the moral of the story, learn the life lesson. Like that's, I think that's present in all storytelling, but there is something very specific in Indigenous narrative about survival against all odds.
Exactly. Like a simple teaching. If the birds are eating a berry, then okay. If the birds are leaving a certain berry alone, then you should too. Like,
Just
and
some of the most like some of the most basic but in tune with our world kind of things. Like you said that and I went, I would have never, and that and I'm like, oh wow, how dumb of me to not even think, right. If the animals can eat it, I may be able to as well.
Yep, and really it's kind of just what teaching observation skills and so many skills. But
Right.
observing, I think that's some things that, we don't let a lot of young people lack. I think, technology is probably part of that. But, just being aware of the world around you and what is, also taking space with you. And what is it how does when that tree falls down and is what else exists because of that tree? And what else is that tree had insects that fed, birds that fed, the shade gave us, then there's so many elements I think that as people going about our fast-paced way, we don't stop to think about things like that. What if you stop to watch that bug for a moment? And I just did that the other day, and I'm like, "Oh my god, look at where is he going? What is he doing?" I just learned something. So, I think everything that we're learning, the world is teaching us if we just listen, and that's pretty much what these stories do. Surviving, and,
Right.
is important.
Interconnectedness,
Yes.
survival.
We
Right.
can't survive without our relatives, the trees and the plants, and they can't survive well, they could probably do a fine job without us.
They might do
We
better
just
without
they would
us.
do better without us, but we can't, and
Right.
those things, we need to get back to those thinking things through story. I think as Angeline, that's what she does, that's what we do is try to go to those places, because young people are open to all of that, I see, totally.
Definitely. And Angeline, I think you both have storytelling in different formats. I think you both approach it very differently, of course, with, beautiful sweeping illustrations and gorgeous narratives. And I would love to hear how oral storytelling has shaped the way that you both write. Just kind of still on that first bit of traditional storytelling to what you have created in both of your careers today.
For me, it's really drawing upon the stories, a lot that I learned from my dad. My dad is a firekeeper, and so when I sit with him at the fire during fasting camp or funerals or, other ceremony where he strikes that ceremonial fire, listening to the stories that he tells, and every time I sit with him, I learn more, uh, not just about our community, but I learn more about him, and so really the stories that I, include in my book, like Carol said, there's truth to it. I'm drawing upon a story my dad told me, and I figured out a way to work it into a story with a character relaying something. And that's how I preserve our culture is by sharing these stories in book and audio form. But they, I invent very little. I am a sponge and I pick up everything, all of the stories that I hear. And I had this mantra while I was writing, and it was I write to preserve my culture and I edit to protect it because I think there's very important information, Indigenous knowledge. And so I believe in writing freely, write everything that you want. And then in the editing process, that's where I really look at do I have the right to share this story? Is this story something that's meant for ceremony? Is this something that, and writing and editing are different processes and storytelling, I have to take that into consideration.
That makes so much sense. The level of what has to stay sacred, what just has to be protected. That to me makes me go to, would you say that you view what you're creating as legacy or as survival, as continuation? Do for some reason, as you were speaking, those two things both popped up to me, and they both feel very different in some weight of what you're doing.
I don't think of legacy, but I do think
Mhm.
of survival.
That makes sense.
In terms of I want stories that my children and future grandchildren and, former students and, other Native teens, for these stories to resonate and for them to feel a sense of connectedness, regardless of what nation they come from. Because I do think we see similarities, we, find those, but protecting indigenous knowledge is such a very, individual, and, according to community standards. I remember getting this one DM from someone who was Native, and she was from a tribe out in the Southwest, and she said, "I really liked your book, but man, you Northern Indians give way too much away." And and I was like, "Yeah, that's very true." Like, you know, certain, for some tribes, indigenous knowledge, they would pull that curtain over that window of the windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. They would pull the curtain much earlier. And so really you have to know, what you're comfortable with sharing and what your community. I always have my inner critic, which is my cousin Deb. She's like my Aunt Teddy. And it's like, I need to be able to justify if she asks me, why did you include, any aspect of the book? I kind of hear cousin Deb saying like, why'd you include that? And if I can't justify it to her, maybe it shouldn't be in the book.
That that makes so much sense. Does cousin Deb reach out ever and go like, "Why did you include that in the book?"
Oh, yeah, because I included something, that they were listening to a song by Nickelback, and she was like, "Nickelback, seriously?" I was like, "But it was the title of the song that fit so perfect with what I needed," and she was just like, "Girl, Nickelback."
I I
Like,
love I
"Is
love that it
that gonna
wasn't
be
even
your
like
legacy?" Yeah.
I love that it wasn't even, "Oh, you shouldn't share that with the world as a whole. Why Nickelback?"
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
exactly,
incredible. That
and
is interesting. Oh, sorry.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's interesting as well, though, like that DM that you northern tribes give away too much. Do you ever get feedback from like the Chippewa community of what you've shared, or is it just you? Is it like groups that maybe share less that you hear from?
It's groups
Because it
that
sounds like Deb is a good guide for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's nations that, their standard is that they really clamp down on what information can be shared. That's usually who I hear from. My own community, they're very appreciative of what I do share, and I'm proud of that because I really took care in deciding what to include. Um, and I think that gets at the whole storytelling, indigenous creatives telling indigenous stories. We have that community check, whereas someone outside of our community, who comes in and mines us for our data and our stories, they don't have to answer to cousin Deb the way that I do. And so that's why I feel so strongly about indigenous stories, being told by indigenous creatives.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no one else has the right. There are so many seats available at all of the tables, and it is time that everyone understands that and that we open up the space and say like, because like in prep for every episode, I look at data, I look at statistics, and I like looking for today the representation of indigenous authors, indigenous creatives. There are so many organizations to preserve and share stories, but yet it's still not there. And Carol, I want to make sure I turn to you first, though. Your creative process before we kind of get into publishing and what needs to happen and what needs to change. How do you find your storytelling similar to what Angeline has shared as far as that kind of voice of cousin Deb?
Yes, I do have, oh gosh. I am different in what I write, of course, because a lot of I do have a middle grade, historical fiction coming out next year. This is my first novel, but if I just speak on, writing picture books, I tend to love to write picture books that deal with social issues, environmental issues, mostly, well, of course, with native communities. So as water protectors, that one was inspired by Standing Rock and all Indigenous peoples fight for against, the pipelines extraction. I also, My Powerful Hair was written about ICWA, really, the Indian on Child Welfare Act, and also the fact that children are still getting their hair cut in school today, Native children by other children, by teachers. So I have another book coming out it's about NAGPRA, the Native Graves and Repatriation Act. It's a picture book. And I like to me, I find it very a challenge to how do you take these big subjects like NAGPRA, like graves and repatriation, and teach and write that to a picture book. Uh, I because I think kids get this it's so easily, if you just boil it all down. So my approach to writing, if I just strictly speak on, well, even my middle grade is also historical fiction. So it's based on my ancestors that are also Anishinaabe, but I'm also Métis. So I am the Red River Métis from the historic Red River Métis Nation in Canada. So my ancestors fought against the Canadian government in the Northwest Resistance in the Battle of Batoche, and we ended up becoming road allowance people. We lost our homes. We just lived on the side of the roads. And were taken in luckily by Turtle Mountain because my grandma and my relatives are Ojibwe. But anyhow, so I look at these things as like, okay, how do I tell this story? But I want to make a hero in this story because there is no hero. And obviously we became road allowance people. And I can't rechange history. I can't rewrite it. I wish I could. But I can do what Carole would have wanted to do, what if I was there, and that would have been whatever I could. Just like in The Gift of the Great Buffalo, the young girl goes off to look for the buffalo, even though she knows she shouldn't. She doesn't care because I think all children, it's innate in all children that they have superpowers. I know I felt that way. Like if the mom and dad would just let me take care of this, it would be done. And who doesn't think that? I think children just do. And so that's mainly what this young girl is saying. Listen, I'll find the buffalo. If I could just go, I would do it. And she does. And she gets in trouble for it, but of course she will. You know, Same thing now with like, I can't rewrite history of the Battle of Batoche, but I can write the story of a young girl who fights for her people and does everything she can to help so that she can say, I did what I could. And, I can't change it, but I think that fighting spirit is what, well, we certainly need that now. And we've always needed it. That's what we come from, Angeline
Right.
and me, I guess, on this land. We've had that fighting spirit. And I just want those stories to be, I want to tell them in a different way. So people see what could have been. And what you could do, even if it doesn't, because I think that relates to children now. What
Mhm.
I can't change the world, but I can do my part, use my voice anyway. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of
No,
my
that's beautiful, and I think kind of leading into this next question for both of you, looking at representation within publishing, looking at representation just within the world, there are so many groups that are underrepresented. I bet most groups are underrepresented, but here specifically, knowing that there is the fight to bring more voices forward, do you feel pressure when you write? I mean, there's already the pressure of how much to share or what to kind of keep within the community. Is there like I have to hit these beats. I have to tell these specific expected plot points, or is there a start of feeling of more freedom or space? Or do you both feel like you can easily sit? Easily is not a word to use in this conversation. Do you both feel that there is space to go, I am telling the story, I want to tell the way I want to tell it?
Yes, I do. I feel that way. I mean,
Mhm.
that's partly what I do with my publishers is,
Sure.
I often say, "This is the story. I'm sorry you don't understand." I think it's very difficult. Uh, I've been doing this, well, I don't know, I've been in this business when they told me my books would never sell to the trade. Uh, the same publishers that publish We Are Water Protectors. So I feel like now we need more native people. I would say in the publishing world, we need more editors at Big Five publishers. We need more agents that are native because I don't truly, honestly, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, because I love my editors, I love my agent, I love my people, but
Yeah.
they don't get a lot of these stories. I have a story about, well, I won't really tell you, but there's part of it where my editor is like, well, but could we change this around and have the people where we end up on? I'm like, no, we're not ending on people. You see, don't you understand? You see, people have ruled forever. We need it. We're going to end up on four-leggeds. We're going to end up on swimmers, but we're not going to, it's not going to be the focus. So I think sometimes it's hard to explain where our world is kind of like we're related to all things. So when we write, our worldview is so different. So I think sometimes it's very difficult to knock against these people that don't quite see it that way. And I'm just like, well, that's the way it's going to stay because that's not the story. You're not getting it. And then they 9 times out of 10 go, yeah, okay. Well, usually 10 times out of 10, they're like, okay, I get it. Because they know that they do give, luckily, the respect
They at
to
least
the
understand,
stories.
right? They don't know what they don't
They
know,
don't know what they don't know. Yes.
but it sounds like that's very much a
It's a
recent
fight.
change. Yeah,
It's a
it's a
fight.
fight that you the whole time.
Yeah.
I've looked at statistics from the Cooperative Children's Book Center that is operated out of the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And, they've been keeping data since 2002 of the number of books for children and teens published every year in the US, and how many of those books um, feature a Native character as the main character, and how many books are written, authored by Native authors. And, when they first started keeping that data, 9 times out of 10, it was a non-Native person that was getting the book deal. And I think in the recent years, we've seen, that changing, fortunately. Um, I would say that I did internalize my fear. This wasn't anything that my publisher put on me, but this was, I liken it to being a player in the minor leagues and me getting the book deal that I got, which was groundbreaking for an unknown Indigenous author to get a seven-figure book deal from a Big Five. I felt like it was like getting called up to the majors, and you get one time at bat, and you had better get on base, or else it might be a very long time before someone from a community like yours gets that type of opportunity again. And so that was what I, went into my first book, Firekeeper's Daughter, wanting it to meet expectations, exceed expectations, because I knew publishing was watching and they were seeing if this story had legs, if it, resonated to the wider market, that would bode well for other emerging authors. So though my publisher, Macmillan, they have treated me very well. I wanted my first book cover to be designed by an Ojibwe artist and Moses Lunham from Kettle and Stony Point First Nation. He, knocked it out of the ballpark. Grand slam. Best book cover I've ever seen. Besides We Are Water Protectors, which I also love because that's Native creatives telling stories in that visual format. And so I felt that my story needed that Ojibwe vision. And my second book, Warrior Girl Unearthed, got a new cover, a refresh for the paperback, and again by an Anishinaabe artist. And she's also doing the cover for my third book, which comes out in September, Sisters in the Wind. And I just believe so strongly that that takes the storytelling to that visual level. And then for me, I'm such a fan of audiobooks. I wanted my books narrated by an Indigenous narrator because I wanted them to know those cadences of like how elders talk in my community. And that's like another aspect of storytelling. And Macmillan, everything that I've asked for, they have said yes and so I have a lot of respect for Macmillan.
Your covers, especially, thank you for bringing them up because I live in book covers. That's how I might not remember a title, but I could look at someone and just be like, okay, the book looks like this. And I could describe like picture by picture. And yours especially, I always like Firekeeper's Daughter pops into my head so often. Because it's stunning and like it's a butterfly, but it's not just a butterfly. Its face is like it lives in there. And to know that every step of the way you were saying like, no, these are the artists. These are the voices. Could you talk a little bit more about your process for pulling in your narrators for the audiobooks? Because that's also so fascinating that like it makes complete sense. The cadence is there. The storytelling beats are already understood. No one has to be given notes.
Sure. So when it was time to, work on the audiobook, I had expressed how important I felt it was to have an Indigenous narrator. And so Macmillan and we like blasted on all of our social media, calling for Indigenous narrators, no experience necessary. You just had to read a 5-minute sample and upload it. And I got to listen to all of the audio samples. And the instant I heard Isabella Star LeBlanc, I just was blown away by how she, like her Donna's voice and her Granny June, and just she got it. Yes. And so I've been really fortunate that she narrated both of my audiobooks, and it makes such a huge difference, when someone who's heard their elders be like, "Oh, my girl, you better not kiss that boy. That might be a cousin." Like that
Yeah.
kinda. Yeah, yeah.
So to go to your earlier point of the pressure you internalized, the fear, the I have to knock this out of the park. I can't just get on base. It's got to be home run. When did that go away for you? Is it still there? I mean, your book 3 is coming out in September, but I mean, what does that feel like?
That I hit a grand slam with Firekeeper's Daughter, and so to me, I have, publishing cachet, and that I can tell this, I can continue telling stories in the way that I want and help influence publishing to, take those types of chances with Indigenous authors. I would say uh, it went away when Firekeeper's Daughter, stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 36 weeks, I believe. It won the Prince Award for Outstanding Young Adult Literature, the Morris Award for Best Debut by a Young Adult Author, and Goodreads, the best YA book of the year. And then being named to Time Magazine's list of 100 best young adult books of all time. Uh, Those accolades, yeah, there's certainly the ego boost, and I will not deny that I get a thrill out of that. But it's knowing that I've cemented a place in the canon where we are not absent from these lists, from these things that publishing take stock in. Um, we had an Indigenous author who was a finalist for National Book Award. There's no longer like when you take data. I'm an educator, so when we do data about student achievement, there's usually not enough Native student data collected, so we're always like a dash or an asterisk, and
Right.
to be seen in publishing data to show up there. And speaking as part of the canon, this cracks me up. My agent, Faye Bender, she texted me the other day and she said her son had taken his SATs and there was a question about Firekeeper's daughter on the SAT. And she was like, "You are part of the canon." And I was I, just thrilled, just thrilled.
That makes me emotional because like I remember your book coming out and like it just like you said, you are part of the canon. Like that word, when you said that, it gave me chills because it's true. There's an SAT question, and like the data is there, and that is so meaningful.
Yep.
That's oh. Now, Carol, I wanted to hear your perspective on working with illustrators for your picture books and how you go about some of the direction you give and who you bring in and how that has worked for you.
Oh, yes. Well, I guess after the Caldecott,
Yeah.
I decided I want to make sure that I think that there's not enough native illustrators. So there wasn't at the time. Water Protectors came out in 2020, and still, we need more. Always need more. But the thing I found is that a lot of native people were not trained in graphic design. Why would they be? No one ever wanted our work. As I was told, your work is not to the trade. It's not ever going to sell. It'll just it's too niche. So you need to write bunny stories and whatnot. So I think a lot of native people, very fine artists, they're, as you can see, like with Angeline's covers, a lot of native people, they're artists first. That they learned how to do the paint. They don't know how to necessarily illustrate a 32-page children's book. So one thing that I will always make sure of with a publisher with a new book is that we choose someone who's new that we can and they'll help me they'll bring up, so the Steph Little Bird on My Powerful Hair, she's a fine artist. She's also a curator at museums. She had never done a picture book, but the publisher said, "We will," Abrams said, "We will sure help. We love the style too." And so they really held her hand. Same with The Gift of the Great Buffalo in Bloomsbury. We found Allie and love her work and thought it was perfect for the story. And so they said, "Yes, we will work with her." So now they can go on and do other books, which they are. Now I can't get them to do any more books with me because they're so busy doing other books with other people, but that's great because that's the idea. I feel like if I had this opportunity to help bring other people, and their beautiful talent to the world, that's certainly something that I will do.
It's a chance to platform, it's a chance to uplift. I think that's
Yes.
beautiful.
No, I love it.
Now for both of you, Carol, especially with the sneak preview that you've got a middle grade coming, how do you both find your voice for your audience or when you play around shifting different audiences or, things like that? Because,
Oh.
I'm thinking of what you've said so far, Carol, is like the story is the story being told, but to make that for a picture book audience and then now to be finding a different voice for a middle grade audience and
Well,
then
I'm sorry,
Angeline
you
as
go.
well for YA. But yes.
I just want to say it's funny you say that because well, We Are Water Protectors started out as a novel. It was like 50,000 words when I found my agent with it. And I knew it was going to take me a while to get that to where it was because I had a lot in it. It was a lot more encompassing than this story, very simple. Uh, but my agent was like, "Well, how about if you turn this into a picture book?" And I'm like, "Oh, so I'm going to cut 49,500 words. Okay." So, um, for me, I that's one of the challenges that I love about writing for young people is you do get the opportunity to write across ages. And sometimes a lot of stories I have for instance, the Water Protectors that started as a YA. will probably be get written someday, because there's a lot of things in there that I want to tell that are not suitable. But then there's, just so I listen to the story first, and it tells me what it wants to be. I feel, a book about Nagpra and beaded bag. I felt like that just needed to be told to young people because they would go to the museum and see that, and this bag speaks to them. So anyway, things like that for me is how does this story and what is the content? If it's am I going to talk about things like man camps or oil industry? That certainly has to be a much older novel or a novel. So I love that challenge. Part of it is this is a novel and just to not to babble too long, but the middle grade historical fiction is the same family from The Gift of the Great Buffalo. So that picture book we decided to take her older and make her, yeah. So this is her from that into this story too. So
Oh, wow. So
yeah,
it's just like you have the story. Well, the challenge will be getting there for whatever they kind of say back of, okay, you want this to be for this group. Here's some
yes,
notes.
yes, exactly.
Angeline, what about for you?
For me, I've loved writing young adult and knowing that I'm at the upper edge of young adult in terms of very easily adult crossover. That's really where I've enjoyed telling stories. What I try to do with each book is to challenge myself in some way. So with my second book, it was, can I write a character other than Donis? Because as you may well know, Firekeeper's Daughter took like 36 years from the time I first had the idea until it got published. I had 1 year to write Warrior Girl, Unearthed, which looks at NAGPRA and the Native Graves, Protection Repatriation Act. And so to write this character that was just so impulsive and, you know, uh, well-meaning, but misguided in some ways, it just that was my challenge. And then for my third book, I really wanted to play with the time and tell a story that, uh, goes back and forth. And with my fourth book, I'm I'm starting my research for that right now, and my challenge will be I want to work with multiple narrators, have the story told by many different women. And, so that we can get, Granny June's coming of age story and, you know, uh, uh, you know, some of the babies that we meet in books 1 through 3, like Into the Future, what those babies their relationship with the water, what that's like into the future. So I'm really excited that I've been able to vary my technique, my approaches, the craft, while still staying in that lane of young adult and adult crossover. After that fourth book, who knows? I have an idea for a picture book. I have an idea for an adult rom com. And I also have ideas for something that's like part memoir and part craft because I love the stories behind my stories. And I think there's whenever I talk with aspiring authors, those writers, I love to share about craft and to talk with them about it and how I'm a different writer for every book I've done. And so that's something that I'm excited about in the future.
A different writer for every book I've done. That is so thought provoking because right, it's the like my greatest work is the next one because like I'm learning and evolving and growing. I love that you set out with a challenge for yourself. That is always room to say, I want to see how I do this. Not can I do this because you can do it. It's the I want to see how it comes from me. I also love the idea. I in a heartbeat would read the part memoir part, but also the fun of just like, yeah, I could write a rom-com. Like that freedom is so fun, but it's also just the like for me who is I'm just a voracious reader. I just want books all the time. So to know that like, oh, you find a voice you love and they could give you everything if that's what they want to do. And so I'm like, Please, please give us everything.
For Warrior Girl, and writing that
Mhm.
character that was just so different than, the main character in my first book, Daunus, but Barnes& and Noble, had requested a special edition with a bonus chapter narrated by a secondary character, and, my main character is a twin, and I resisted writing that bonus chapter from the other twin's perspective because I felt that was not challenging enough, but I it ended up going so well, and then that's what gave me the idea, "Wait, I can tell stories from multiple viewpoints," and made me excited, to do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, like, because I love the play with time when you jump back and forth within a timeline. I love a multi POV because, right, there's something, especially once you connect with a character, that you go, "Well, I love that they're here, but now I wanna hear how they think. Now I want to hear how they are seeing this world that we're all kind of living in for these, handful of hundreds of pages." It's also just fun that it's like there's no preciousness about it. It is pure joy. It is art. Like, that's where this is coming from. Now, looking ahead, what are some things that you would say to Indigenous creatives out there to get into the space, and how would you tell people to support and appreciate and uplift? What are some of those, like, looking forward things, the notes and hopes for the future?
Well, uh,
I know, a
I
a rough time to ask that question in the
I
in the
would,
world in
yeah,
general.
I know, but just keep doing it, that resistance is, this is writing is resistance and art is resistance and using your voice is resistance. And we need more, 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 and find your people, find people that, critique groups, your friends that want to write, find people that do art together and work together to get your craft, to enhance your craft. And reach out to definitely learn the industry. I would definitely, and especially if you're native, heart drum. Look to Cynthia Leidig Smith, because she's a very much a pro. Uh, getting young people or not young people, but native stories out there. But also, for me, I really what helped me a lot was the SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. When I was first starting out, like 2006, I don't even know when I was really starting to, but I reached out to them and I really got to know the industry, agents, editors, and it's good if you can go to conferences even if they're online now, because a lot of times those give you opportunities to get your work in front of big 5 publishers that you would never get without an agent. And sometimes those big moments, where the slush piles, they're actually giving you a window of maybe 3 months to submit your work, and those are critical, also to keep pounding at the door. Because I've been as I think took me 11 years to get, actually Water Protector. My first book came out and it was a little teeny thing in Canada, and it, like, I didn't even cash my $300 advance check. Woo! I thought I had made it, but I couldn't cash the check. Anyway, so, it doesn't matter, you get there, you get in, you just keep hammering away till you can get, as we know, as Native people and as people from minority and, any kind of a community where you're, not the majority, we're used to fighting and getting in, and just keep pestering and getting at it, because you will get. I think most of this business, to be quite honest with you, is perseverance and staying with it and just not giving up. And then also you'll learn your craft too by going to these, craft things and working with critique partners. So that's what I would say.
And, echoing a lot of what Carol said, there there's never been a better time to be a native creative. There are more opportunities and resources available to, developing your craft. Uh, Carol brought up SCBWI. I'll bring up We Need Diverse Books, which
Yes.
is a nonprofit organization, and they offer mentorships. They offer this thing called the Walter Grant, which is like $2,000. Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate You Give, she got a $2,000 Walter Grant and bought a new laptop, and that's what she wrote The Hate You Give on. So there's a lot of great resources there. Uh, Quayle, the Color of Children's Literature conference that they do every April. It's incredible. Carole and I have both gone there. We both presented. I met my editor
Yeah.
6 months before she became my editor. I participated in something where you could submit your first 250 words of your novel in progress and have an agent and an editor critique it live on screen. And yeah, Tiff Liao, that's the first time she ever read anything about Firekeeper's Daughter was doing that critique on opening, my book opening. And so really podcasts, I really relied on podcasts to learn a lot about writing, craft, and also the publishing industry and how to get an agent and things like that. So free. I'm talking mostly these are free resources. Quayle, there is a registration fee, but there are scholarships, especially there are some for Native authors, Native writers.
And Highlights Foundation also has scholarships available to Native. So I would, if there's Native people that would like to look into that, there's scholarship available for them. And also, there used to be when Twitter was a twit thing, but I don't know if Blue Sky does it, but like a manuscript wish list that agents would often put out and editors sometimes, so you could look through it and you could see this is what there's the story. This person looking for this. So sometimes if you had a story, my agent who I got with Waterford Detectives, it's funny. She goes, "Oh, you must have saw my manuscript wish list thing on Twitter." I'm like, "No, I had no idea about it." Because she says, "I was looking for a story about Standing Rock." I'm like, "I had no clue." It just so happened serendipity was with me that day, and I happened to send it out to her. So, but things like that, those are the moments that just sometimes those are the keys. But those opportunities, like Angeline saying, where you can give your 200 words manuscript, or sometimes there's auctions, sometimes authors and people will read things for, whatever, but it's great to take advantage of because just another step into closer and closer, you know.
And I want to bring up Carole and I first met in the fall of 2018. We attended Loonsong Turtle Island. It was this writers conference for Native writers. Cynthia Leidick Smith and Deb
Yeah, Dahl
Edwardson,
Edwardson,
Debbie
yes,
Dell Edwardson.
yes,
They put this on, and I went to it, and I met Carole, I met
yeah,
Kim Roger, I met other
yeah,
Native creatives, and it was the first audience or of writers being in community where I didn't have to spend half my time explaining my culture or explaining why I wrote it this way or included this or didn't include this. And the creatives that I met during that, like we cross paths all the time, like Carole and I
yeah,
today. And
yeah,
it was
yeah,
just such a magnificent
yeah,
opportunity. And
yeah.
so that's my guidance, my advice to anyone that's wanting to pursue a career in this or to get that story that just won't leave you. And you want to share that with the world. Look into those resources and those connections with other people, um, because we're kind of all on this journey together.
Yep.
And so, whatever we can do to be in community with, uh, the more the merrier.
And what you said, Angela, I just, I just, just that was such an emotional time for me. But just being around, I just had never really been around, a group of Native creators before. Nothing but us. I just didn't. I'd never. It was amazing, and that alone was worth more than I could possibly ever uh, say because I see my people. they see me and we're together and we're all trying so hard to do the same thing. And, that you're knowing you weren't alone because like I grew up not on my reservation, not near my people. And so being there was just a gift. And I got to hug Angeline and just, I know it's just, I loved it so much. So those things are on, you can't put price tags on those gifts of being in community with your people. I love you, Angeline.
I love you too.
Community is at the core of so many of these episodes, these conversations this season, and especially today, knowing that for anyone out there, if you are part of a community, there is a community there to support you. There are writers groups for you. There are places to go to find your people. None of us have to do this alone. And I think that's such an important note for us to get to end on, that we all get to be in this together. And as many of the resources as we can find will be in the show notes, compiled, so you can all, like find, fight, continue knocking at the door. Before I let you both go, I want to make sure I give you both space to tell the folks where to find you online and anything you want to promote or anything you've got going on right now.
I'm at angelineboulley.com. I'm also on some social media. And what I have coming out, well, Warrior Girl came out last month in paperback with that bonus chapter in it. And my third book, Sisters in the Wind, which looks at Indian Child Welfare Act, those Native teens that are searching for community. And that comes out September 2nd.
Again, gorgeous art. Like always the best.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't prepared.
Sorry, I know.
Well, this book is The Gift of the Great Buffalo. This came out in February with Bloomsbury. And then I have a middle grade historical fiction coming out. I don't have the cover. I haven't seen it, but I can't tell you, show it to you yet. It comes out in March of 2026. It's called Red River Rose. And it's the same family from this story but she's older in that. And so that's what I'm doing. And
Amazing.
just what you said, just everybody please just know that you're not alone. And you're never alone. People love you are out here, especially with this business as Angeline, and I can say, you work alone a lot, you're in a vacuum, but all you have to do is call up your writing buds, have a little Zoom and say, hey man, I'm stuck or I need some love, and that's what you do. Because we all experience that too. No matter how long you've been writing, you always need love and caring and people just to have your back. It's important.
Absolutely. Everyone will have your back. Just don't forget to turn to your friends. Turn to the world. We're all fighting to make it a better place. Well, thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And now we'll head over to our next segment. Hey, y'all, it's that time in the episode where we take a moment to pause before heading into our next segment. I'm here with another Libby tip for you. It's no secret that I am a diehard audiobook fan, but if you're new to them or haven't played around with settings in Libby yet, I wanted to show how you can adjust a few things in the audiobook experience. So let's hop into Libby and check it out. All right, so we are in Libby. We're right in my audiobook player here. You can see we've got the cover on the screen, the play button, our duration overall. The two things I want to talk about today with you in the audiobook experience that you can adjust are the playback speed of the audiobook and how you can set a sleep timer so you can be like me and fall asleep with media playing and not have to wake up and go, oh gosh, where did I pass out at? So let's take a look. First, we'll go into audiobook speed. Now, up in the top right-hand corner in Libby, you'll see this little speedometer. If we tap on that, you can see your current playback speed. This is my demo library, so this is at 1 time or the normal speed. If you were in my Libby app, you might see that my setting is a little more like 2 times the speed, especially when I am in the thick of a book. But on the left-hand side of this screen, you can see the preset menu we have for you. So there's normal speed, and you can look at 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, or 2 times the speed. But if none of those presets are exactly what you like or what you're looking for, you can use the fine tune slider on the right to adjust in increments of 0.05 from almost half the speed of the book or all the way up to 3 times the speed of the original narration. So come in here, play around, and find what sounds best to you. And then once you're getting ready for your kind of listening time here, especially if it's at nighttime before bed, if you tap on that crescent moon, this will bring you into the sleep timer. Now, I love the presets over here because, of course, you could just say, oh, 15, 30, 60 minutes. But my favorite button is this one right here. This will be different depending on how long the chapter you're in is, but it is the end of chapter button. So at the very least, you can say, well, by the time I fell asleep, it was the end of the chapter. You only have to scrub back a little bit. It's a little more concentrated that way. So you've got your presets. Like I said, my favorite is end of chapter, or you can use the fine tune to go from as little as 5 minutes all the way up to 2 hours. So that's a little look at some of the amazing audiobook features within Libby that you can play around and experience. With that, let's head into our Indigenous book racks. Well, welcome to our second segment here where we dive into our book recommendations. I am joined by the incredible Bre at locked_booktician_ and the amazing Cece at ccewing_. Hello to both of you. Welcome. How are you?
Hello. Hello.
It's so good to see both of you, and I'm so excited you could be here today to
Mhm.
join me for some Indigenous book recommendations.
I'm so
I
excited.
I know you are, and I'm so happy that we have you for this one specifically, Bre. I won't blow up your spot right now, but it's like
Honestly,
the
it's
perfect
such a
it's
good
the perfect
list.
location. Yes.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
looking at your books. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna how I'm gonna stack up to this.
we are incredibly lucky. And the thing I was looking at today that I love about this list is that we get to play across so many genres by having the focus be Indigenous reads and Indigenous recs, because like we've seen all season, these are just amazing and incredible authors who are bringing you what you want. So the genre you love, there is a way to get the perspective from a community that you are not a part of or that you are a part of. However you want to look at it, I love to get an additional perspective. I love to see how other people are experiencing and how other cultures and how other approaches to writing happen. So I think this
Mhm.
is an incredible example of that, and I cannot wait for us to hop into it. We'll let the alphabet be our guide. Bre, do you want to give us your first pick?
Yes. Are you guys able to hear me? I'm just always trying to make sure you're
You're
able to hear
good.
me. Okay.
Yep.
So the first pick I'm gonna go for, it is a novel that was edited by Sean Hanks, I believe. It's called Never Whistle at Night. This is a anthology of so many brilliant Indigenous folk who write spooky stuff. And each of the stories, there's not like every story is different, every story is unique, every story has what I believe to be a theme of like either grief or loss or looking at an aspect of their specific way of knowing, whether it's their tribe, their community, or their family. But it really interrogates it and put a spooky spin to it. There is some stories with Nick Medina is in there, Stephen Graham Jones is in there as well. There's just a plethora of wonderful, authors in the book. To me, it's like, I think anthologies give you an opportunity to understand or figure out what an author is capable of. So when you are presented with an anthology like this one, you can definitely explore like different cultural norms. You can explore what that culture would think is spooky is. A lot of times when I'm talking about Indigenous reads specifically, I'm always saying like Indigenous reads, especially horror, that's what I read the most of. It always reminds me that there is history attached to that horror. There is something that generated that horror to be told in the way that it was told. And a lot of people don't really understand that connection, or they think it's not spooky because of what our westernized world defines what spooky is. And it's like, if you step outside of that, you can get just a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of storytelling in such a way that is descriptive, because a lot of Indigenous writing is very descriptive, very storytelling in nature. And I just think that, this is a great book that you want to get into if you're looking for like horror and Indigenous reads. There are some stories that I feel like are shorter than others, but that comes along with the formats of anthology. But yeah, Never Whistle at Night is just beautiful. Even the title itself, it's like a lot of Indigenous cultures throughout America. You don't whistle at night because you don't know what's going to be whistling back at you. So it's like there's cultural things even in the title. It's just brilliant to me. So loved it.
It's an absolutely beautiful collection. It's so amazing to, especially for something like this, to get to go through an anthology and experience so many different authors. Because while there are names in there that we know from our different kind of horror scenes, especially, there are so many other voices that this could be your way to discover. And it's never overwhelming to dive into an anthology. Cece, what do you have first for us?
Well, I was gonna start with some literary fiction, but I'm kind of feeling inspired by the whole anthology thing. I think I want to talk about my anthology because truly, like, just the opportunity to have so many different kinds of artists in one place, it just gives you a lot of access and freedom to discover more of their work. So, there is the book I want to talk about is it's called Not Your Princess, I guess hashtag Not Your Princess. It's Voices of Native American Women, and it is edited by Lisa Charlie Boy and Mary Beth Leatherdale. Um, so this is a collection of poems, essays, prose, interviews, photographs, and art that all combine to express the experience of being a Native woman. I absolutely love this because there are so many different types of art. There are so many different nations represented, and it's a celebration of like how their experiences are similar, but also how extremely varied they are from person to person. It's a celebration of womanhood, particularly Indigenous womanhood, and it validates a lot of like pain and rage and fear, but these women also inspire so much like passion and love and self-healing. And I think it's a really gorgeous collection for that.
Oh, stunning. And uh, again, I'm glad you both came with anthologies today. I wanted to throw one out there if y'all will indulge me. I think it's really fun to show the breadth here, and I wanted to bring up a juvenile fiction title. This is a really gorgeous picture book. The cover has beaded details. This is Métis Like Me by Tasha Hilderman and Risa Hugo. It's a CBC and Globe Mail bestseller. Whether or not you're Métis, there's so much to experience and learn about this amazing Indigenous culture. Take a picture book journey into Métis crafts, music, and cooking with friends who love to share. Are You Métis Like Me? A group of children of Métis descent share and explore all the ways they celebrate and experience their heritage, enjoying traditional foods like bannock, bread, and Saskatoon berries, crafting with beads, sharing stories, dance, music, and songs. Each child shares a different way they enjoy honoring their backgrounds and weaving parts of the rich tapestry that make up their culture. One child, though, has grown up disconnected from their history and can't join in with the others in the same way. But they soon see it's never too late to learn, celebrate, or become part of a community in which Métis and non-Métis alike can discover the richness of an often overlooked culture. It's a rhythmic, jubilant book that will encourage young readers of all backgrounds to celebrate their own heritage and learn more about Métis history, and it contains back matter including an author's note, recipe, and a dictionary to further inspire. So it's really beautiful. It's a gorgeous look at the culture. And again, like there are so many instances of just either forced or falling detached from your heritage and your background. And that is an additionally unique part of the Indigenous American experience and just the Indigenous experience in general. So it's a fascinating look at how we can all celebrate and all reconnect. And this way I can sneak in a picture book for for those of you who might need it. Or, it's a good place to start too.
That's so dope. I was really close of adding a picture book. I really was. I was like, I'm about to add it. I don't know if I should.
It's tough. You know, we have only so many minutes and so much space that I know I force y'all to make some tough choices. So today I was like, I'll sneak in the picture book.
hmm
Bre, what do you have next for us?
I'm going like in and out of order, but let's talk about the Merrill Thieves. So the Merrill Thieves was written by Cherie Demoline. There you go. Right there is a lovely photo. Thank you, Cece, of the Merrill Thieves. So this book came to me at a moment when I was just starting to read Indigenous reads, and this was maybe like 6, 7 years, 9, I don't know, one of those years ago. And one of my students was like, "Have you ever read The Merrill Thieves?" And I was like, "I've never read The Merrill Thieves." And I read it and was immediately blown away. So The Merrill Thieves follows the story of a group of young people. There's one character who always come to mind, Frenchie, I think was his name. But in Merrill Thieves, it follows the story of a group of young people who are choosing to survive together, and they have to survive together because they are essentially running away from people who are trying to steal them and also ultimately steal the marrow in their bones for nefarious reasons. So they are literally on the run trying to figure out how they can protect themselves and be there for one another. But what I find most intriguing about this book is that even though it is fictional, it leads to historical context. And again, that's one of my favorite parts about reading Black and Indigenous literature. It's like you think you're getting fiction, but you're actually getting nonfiction elements throughout it as well. And throughout history, through the shared history that Indigenous folks in Canada and here in the United States have, that shared history of people thinking that parts of their body was worth something, and then they would hunt them down and try to take parts of their body. And it's that notion of an Indigenous person is not a full human, right? It's that notion of that saying of kill the Indian, save the man. So while you're reading this book, I just found myself being very connected to the themes of the book of like survival is the key. How can we survive this literal attack on our bodies? And who is trustworthy? Who can we lean on and protect us? How can we then protect ourselves? So, and then it's heartbreaking because you're reading this book and it's through children perspective of trying to figure out how they're going to escape these people who have put it upon themselves that they need to hunt Indigenous people down and steal their marrow for nefarious reasons. So I really enjoyed how the book was structured. I think that it is a must read, especially for younger kids who don't even know that Indigenous people exist. I hate to say it, but there's quite a few of young people in 2025 that do not believe that Indigenous people exist and thrive and deserve to be full human beings. So I think this fictional book, and I think there's two books in the series. I think it's a duology. I think you should really, really consider reading this book and also take your time when something hard or discomforting comes. I think you should take your time and ask yourself why you feel that way. Ask yourself what is this book trying to tell you? And is this book trying to tell you to be aware of something that you wasn't aware of, to begin with? I just think it's a really good novel. I feel like I'm just babbling along, but it is really a good novel. It really is. And Frenchie, shout out to you, dude.
But that's such a good point. You don't have to blow through this one. Take your time, sit with it, feel your feelings, feel your emotions, and start to challenge the things that come up. This gives us all the opportunity to do some growing and some stepping forward.
Absolutely. I can talk about my next one. This is the one I was going to start with, but I wanted to talk about The Break. This is by Katharina Vermette. This was a group read a few years ago It was for an Indigenous readathon, Indigathon. I'm not sure if it's still happening, but this was the group pick, and ever since then I've been obsessed with it. I just feel like that readathon was one of the best for finding Indigenous books. So this is an intergenerational family saga. It's about a Métis woman witnessing a possible act of violence. And then there is also a whole other family of Métis women across this like stretch of land that they call the break. And they are dealing with the fact that this violence has happened to one of their own. So we get kind of these shifting narratives from different members of the community. We're learning more about what happened that night and how everyone is connected, but also how everyone kind of comes together to heal afterwards. So we're learning that a lot of the women in these families have experienced a lot of tragedy of their own, but that is why it can be even more important that they can sustain one another when one of them is suffering, when one of them is in danger or needs that support. This is definitely a darker story, and it really gets into violence and women's safety and intergenerational trauma. And it feels like a book that knows hurt, but it also knows the healing strength and power of community. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I feel like I don't see it talked about enough, and I think you should read it. It's great.
I love intergenerational storytelling. I think it's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I think this is also like a very natural place to bring up nativehope.org and the overall massive amount of crimes and things that happen to Indigenous women. Native Hope is a focus on missing and murdered Indigenous women across the United States and Canada. Native women and girls are being taken or murdered at an unrelenting rate. I know we usually keep things lighthearted and we keep things, but this is so beyond important. And even if we can just bring anyone's awareness to this, there are just so many women and children who go missing. And this is a place where you can at least look for more information on how you can help, what you can do to just kind of support. And I think that the break brought that to top of mind for sure. Just kind of thinking in broad strokes. But yes, so check that out and consider how you can support and how you can help Indigenous women and children. Brie, I know
Absolutely.
that's a. I was going to say, I know that's a tough transition to your next pick,
No,
but
no. I mean, I was going to talk about it at some point. I was
oh,
like, we need to
perfect.
talk about
Well,
these
you can go
missing and
for it.
murdering Indigenous relatives. I was like, we're going to talk about it at some point.
Yes.
But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think there is so what's disheartening is how there is lack of support, like from institutions like, police and other government things of supporting on finding these missing and murdered relatives, because it's like it's everywhere. Every community can tell you. Almost every household, especially if we're talking about on reservations, they can tell you some stories about someone that they know personally who has been missing and murdered, and it's an epidemic, and it needs to be addressed. And I think it goes back to what I was saying in Marrow Thieves. It's just like if your country doesn't view you as a whole human, even in our census, we have like Black, white, non-Hispanic, Hispanic, and other. It's like, so we're continuing this erasure of Indigenous people, even through our census. So it's like we need to raise awareness. So thank you for sharing that, Joe. That was top notch. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And to your point, it is not just like, oh, a friend of a family friend.
Yeah.
It does not go far down the line. I
Yeah.
cannot express enough. Like you said,
Hmm.
epidemic.
Epidemic. Hmm.
This is not small potatoes. This is not, oh, a few people. This is every home is touched in a
Yeah.
deep way.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
in a deep way, and in comparison to the actual population of Indigenous people, there's
Yes.
a huge, unfairness there as well. Um, I also wanted to talk about CC Indigida, I got to get words together. Indigiton. So Indigathon was created by Kim. Her YouTube channel is called Native Lady Warrior, I believe. I could be wrong.
Well, you gotta love Zoom and the internet, and how sometimes we will lose someone mid very important sentence. But while we wait for Bre to reconnect, I do have a bonus pick that I'd love to share with you, Cece. My other pick that I just wanted to make sure I brought up is a gorgeous collection as well. I also brought an edited group of stories. This is My Life Growing Up Native in America, edited by Illuminative. This one came out in October of last year, but it's a moving collection of 20 powerful essays, poems, and more that capture and celebrate the modern Native American experience, featuring entries by Angeline Boulley, Madison Hammond, Carole Roselle Smith, and many more. With heart, pathos, humor, and insight, 20 renowned writers, performers, athletes, and activists explore what it means to be Native American today. Through a series of essays and poems, these luminaries give voice to their individual experiences while shedding light on the depth and complexity of modern Native American identity, resilience, and joy. The topics are as fascinating and diverse as the creators, from Mato Wahui, award-winning composer of Reservation Dogs, honoring a friend who believed in his talent, to New York Times bestselling author Angeline Boulley, exploring what it means to feel Native enough. These entries are not only an exploration of community, they're also a call for more just and equitable world and a roadmap toward a brighter future. Edited by Illuminative, an organization dedicated to amplifying contemporary Native voices, My Life Growing Up Native in America features contributions from, as I said, Angeline Boulley, Philip J. Deloria, Eric Gansworth, Kimberly Guerrero, Soma Holland, Madison Hammond, Nosgrok Rainey Hobson, Trudy Jackson, Princess Desharai Johnson, Lady Shug, Asaki Ba LaFrance, Chacher, Ta Leclerc, Cece Meadows, Sherry Mitchell, Charlie Amaya Scott, Kara Roselle Smith, Vera Starbird, Dash Turner, Crystal Wapapa, and Mata Wahuye. So
Whoa.
give that. I know, right? I'm like, oh, not only are those all some
A
powerful
little round of
names,
applause.
boy,
Seriously. That was the list. I'm very
you got to check it out. It's incredible. And I appreciate that this is um it's a nonfiction version of the editions that you have both brought today. So it gives us like I said, that different perspective, that true, like, this is my life. This is why I did this. This is why I did that. Bre, welcome back. Go ahead, pick up right where you left off.
So, Cece, I was talking about the Indigathon that is done by my friend Kim, and her Instagram is Native Lady Book Warrior all together, and also her YouTube is the same. And she did Indigathon for a few years, and I think it's just on hiatus. And I helped her with one of them before, and it's really dope. It's a great opportunity to do it. And I think it went from Indigathon to SCOTUS, which is like a popular phrase used in Indigenous communities. So it's like the SCOTUS readathon. So that is what it turned into, I believe,
That is
if memory
very
serving me correctly. If not, don't at me on the internet, y'all. I tried my best. So
No, thank you. I
I
really
tried my
appreciate
best.
that.
Yeah. So she's super dope. Like, even though she's not as active as she was on YouTube in prior years, her Instagram gives you some great pics on like what new or like just interesting Indigenous reads that she's either read or on her radar. But the book I want to talk about is oh man, I don't know which one to do. I got to do both of them, but I'm just like, which one do you do? Let's talk about White Horse. White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This is an author that I first read from her this year, and she just had a book that came out recently. And White Horse, to me, is one of the books that had me sobbing. I'm not usually a sobber when I read books. I'm usually like, that was good. It touched my heartstrings. I like what you did there. but this one had me in like visible tears and I could not stop crying. And I think a part of it is because I resonated to the main character a lot. This is a story about a girl who grew up not knowing her mom, and because her mom was missing. Earlier, we talked about murdered and missing Indigenous women. This is a story of that, like textbook story of that. Not textbook like that, but it's like an example of a story of that. And while I was reading this book, I remember being like, wow, there's so much grief that turned into resentment because this girl is being told, like, your mom just gone. And then she's like, well, can somebody help me figure out who she was? Can somebody help me retrace like her last steps? So she's going to police officers and being like, can you give me the records of what you did to try to find my mom? And she is met with a not even front and back, 1 page description of what happened to her mom. And she's asking her aunt, who is a community member, I think it was her mom best friend, but a lot of times in Indigenous and Black communities, your mom best friends are your uncles and your aunties, and that's just what that is. And she's asking her, and she's like, I think it's important for you to try to figure it out. She's trying to tell her, like, your grief is taking a hold on you. You got to explore that. You got to move through that. And then she realized that there is some secrets in her family that people are not being honest with her. People are not telling her what really happened to her mom. And then the more she puts the pieces together, she starts to realize what actually happened to her mom, and then her grief transformed to something else. So I think that this book really touched me because it's been about a year and a half since I recently lost my mom. And I'm holding a lot of resentment towards my mom. So while reading this book and feeling abandoned in ways that the main character did, oh my God, I'm really trying to get it together. It just really touched my heart. And I was just like, man, I totally get that. Like, I can never say I understand growing up and not knowing who my mother was, but just the abandonment of a parent's death and how it doesn't make sense to you and you are confused no matter what age you are. That book really touched me. And I think if you are a person grieving and you are grieving that maternal wound and you want to engage with someone and you want to engage with literature that makes you feel seen, and I think this is the book to do that. Sorry about the
Uh,
the
n-
tears.
no, thank you. Thank you for that
Yeah.
vulnerability, but also I have been so lucky to hear you talk about your mom over the last few months that we've been recording together, and she sounds so amazing, and just everything about her seems incredible, and that grief, but also to hear you say that resentment, that anger at her being gone. I feel like that's the piece that's often missing when people talk about grief, when they talk about loss. Like we know the pain and you think it's so many things, but a lot of people don't ever get to the point of mentioning that one. And while your
Yeah,
experience is
Yeah.
different, there's still
yeah.
that resonance.
Yeah,
A
and this
hundred
is
percent.
I just found myself like being like, man, like I understand being like I hate her, like that's
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
the character said, like being like I don't believe she abandoned me. And death is so final. You can't ask questions. You can't follow up when somebody dies. Like they just go for real. So it's just like coming to that terms, and then what I find in my grief is I get so angry that sometimes there's moments of like when my mom bought me the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin for
Mm.
Christmas one year. I'm like, that's an example of her love. So I have to like hold on to it and just watching how the main character did that as well. I don't know. I think I'm getting too teary, but it just was really it really
Yeah.
was beautifully written and 5 stars. Erica, you gotta read her from me for sure. For sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It sounds like such a gorgeous book that I've already wanted to read, but like with something exploring grief like that, definitely moves it up my list. It reminds me a lot of, I feel like basically every Stephen Graham Jones book I've ever read is about trying to mourn a father. And that's why, I mean, wild different horror stories. Bre, I think you're going to talk about one, but like the way that that grief is like shows up so often in his work as something that he's constantly working through with all these different emotions. It just reminds me.
Yep. 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 I always say to be Black and Indigenous is to have an intimate relationship with grief. And it's just so apparent. It's everywhere. Like you cannot escape it. You will lose someone often at a rapid rate. Like it's just what it is. And especially in a US context, you will always be losing someone. And it's kind of and it sucks because it's like you lose someone and you don't even get a chance to grieve them well. And then you lose someone else and then you lose. It's just like a intimate relationship with grief, which is why I've always felt seen in Black and Indigenous literature.
Absolutely. The importance of grief and such a different journey with it in Black and Indigenous cultures as well. Of like you said, it's constant. It's I don't know. There's always a funeral. It feels like I feel like that was part of my life too. That we were always going to celebrate someone. Like we were always oof. It's tough, but we carry on. We read the stories, we feel the pain, and we remember those happy things. We pick up our gifts, our treasures, our mementos from the people that we lost, and we carry them with us. And I think that's beautiful that we still persist despite everything going on in the world and everything happening around us. So Cece, could you give us another book to add to our
I
TBR?
can actually. And, I'm going to jump around again because I feel like this one kind of perfectly connects. I want to talk about Sabrina and Karina. This is by Kali Fajardo-Enstein. This is an absolutely gorgeous collection of stories. I think if there's a theme in my list of books today, it's communities of women grieving and moving through it. So all of these stories are set in Denver, Colorado, and are all following Latinas of Indigenous ancestry, which is a huge community in Colorado that it goes really underrepresented when we talk about Indigenous communities, Indigenous people in the North Americas. I think the biggest theme of these stories, the main themes are violence and inherited trauma, but there's this through line of how we also pass down cures and remedies and support and guidance. My favorite story in the collection is one called Remedies because it is about the things we inherit, good and bad, mother to daughter. And there's a warmth to it, even if it does have the same kind of lonely ache that a lot of these stories do. I think this collection is remarkably good at capturing snapshots. As sad as it is, you feel every moment of it. And I think it's a wonderful collection. And Kali is a fabulous author. So
What a gorgeous cover too. Like absolutely stunning. The art on
Super
that
pretty.
is super pretty.
Super pretty. I read that book a couple years ago and I said, finally, talk about Colorado. I lived there, so I lived there, I did grad school there. So I was just like, wow, like the indigenous, like you don't hear when you think of Denver, you think of white hippies just living their lives in Boulder, but you don't think about the displacement. You don't think about the communities that've been shunned, and I just like you have to be in it. So I really appreciated the setting of it because I was like, oh, I remember that. I actually went over there. Like it was able to pinpoint some things. So great pick, Cece.
yeah, I have Indigenous cousins in Colorado. So yeah, definitely a point of
Come on,
something to me
cousins.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Shout out
that
to
it
the
is
cousins.
such a big community in Colorado.
Yeah. Yep. hmm Unrelated. Have you ever went to Takabe and got the bison ribs?
No, I
You
haven't.
you got to go to Takabe and get the bison
Okay.
ribs. It's so good. Nobody asked for
Okay,
that,
that's good to
but
know.
I had to share, girl. It's so good. It's so good.
I don't think anyone's ever gonna be mad at a good food rack.
Listen,
No, honestly.
them bison ribs at the Kabe will make you think, am I really on planet Earth? Transcending. It's really good. It's really
Damn,
good.
okay, like legit out of this world food, not just like
It's good.
not just bullshitting there. It's like,
No,
yeah,
it's
It's
out of this
good
world.
good food.
food. They even have like fry bread nuggets, which kind of look like beignets, and they're like powdered. Oh my God. They got woja pea, which is like a berry sweetened mix that you can put on fry bread. Oh, listen, it's really good. It's really good.
That
Yeah.
sounds so good.
Just had to talk
Now I'm
about.
hungry. I'm like,
Listen, listen. And the last time I was there, or the years I lived there, Takabe sponsored. They were the food vendor in the powwow that happens in March, which is one of the biggest powwows in the U.S. And I was listen, I was first in line. What? Let me get my food today. So yes, it is good. Okay.
when it's right, it's right. I
When
mean,
it's right, it's right. When it's right, it's right. Okay.
take
I
us home
have
with
a
your last pick.
I'm ready to take y'all home.
Okay.
So, this book I recently read in one sitting with my patrons. I said, we are reading this book together as a group from beginning to end. Did it take us 11 hours? Yes, but we stuck through. And it is called The Buffalo Hunter. Now, this book is probably, I used to always say The Only Good Indians is my favorite book of Stephen Graham Jones because it cannot be compared to any. That book will make you be like, I cannot read any horror at night ever again. But this book, I felt like really was a slow burn of, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get your ass. And when I get your ass, I'm going to get your ass good. So I really, really like that element of this book. So we're following the perspective of two individuals and we're going in and out of time. So if you're a person who loves time manipulation, I'll at this book. I love time manipulation. It don't even got to make sense. It don't even have to make sense. And I am satted and what? Seated. Amen. So this book follows the story of this person who's indigenous, and then I forget what his name was. I'm terrible with remembering characters' name. I do remember that there was one guy who didn't have a toe, and I was just cracking up about the fact that he didn't have a toe. I don't know why, but the way it was described in the book really led to some humor there. But it's a priest and an indigenous person. So it starts off with the indigenous person going to where the priest is like doing his priest stuff. I don't know about that life. I don't know about that religion life, but I know wherever he was doing his priest of the church. There we go. At the church. I'm sorry, y'all. But at the church, this indigenous man is in the back. He's peeping. He's looking. He's like, all right, what's going on here? He's sitting there looking at the priest, looking at him, talking to him, like, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about my life. So he goes on this story about his life, and we get the perspective from the priest, who is very colonizing thinking, right? Very colonizing thinking. But he is not understanding why this indigenous person is choosing to confess to him about things that he has done. So while you're reading this book, you already know, if you can like get the contact clues, that this is called the Buffalo Hunter's Hunter, and somebody is being hunted. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil, but somebody is being hunted, and rightfully so. Okay. So he's just sitting there, and when I say he, the indigenous man just sitting there and he's just like telling them these stories. And what I found like so beautiful is that Stephen Graham Jones did not stray away for being like, the white man did this, the white man did that. The white, like he said it straight on paper, which is what I love. And I also found myself emotional. I didn't cry, but I was teared up when he talked about like the thing that he did to have him be separated from his community, and what that feels like to be separated from community, family, and language. And I just feel like we don't talk enough about the levels of erasure, right? We talked about earlier when I talked about in our census, that's just one, that's just one aspect of the government. The government also is not, adhering to treaties, clearly. So it's just like while reading this book, you're starting to get like from a historical aspect of this man who had lived a life of what he has seen happen to his people by the hand of the colonizer. And it's done in such it's a level of insidiousness that just seeps throughout the whole book that adds to the horror that really makes you think, oh my God, I kind of think I know what's gonna happen. And if it happened, it happened. It's above me now. But I really love this book. 5 stars. Shout out to you, Stephen Graham Jones. You're gonna always be that dude to me. Always.
When I saw this one coming and I read the description, I was also seated. I was beyond ready for this. But you're also so right. Like erasure, I think of all of the languages we've lost, all of the languages that have just completely ceased to exist, either in an effort to assimilate or in forced measures. Like we have lost languages across many indigenous and blended cultures in the United States. And yeah, so oral traditions are so important and mm, 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 mm. But amazing book. You're so right. 5 stars, like
It was
seated and ready.
fantastic. It was fantastic. I remember being in the camera because I vlogged the whole thing. It's like it's on my channel, but I vlogged the whole thing on my YouTube channel, and I just kept being like, "Oh my God, oh my God." No, he didn't. No, he didn't say that. Oh, like it was too much. It was too good. I don't know. I just love the rawness. I love when people don't sugarcoat how someone has colonized their history. I love that. I love when you're giving me the real. And again, a lot of people can be like, oh, it's a fictional novel. Like I said earlier, fiction does not mean that it is without nonfiction elements. So to me, I really enjoyed that book.
Definitely, definitely. Just so good. And yeah, fiction always seems to come from a place of reality. Again, if you have feelings that come up that are making you ask questions about, did that happen? What does this mean? Look it up,
Hmm.
research, sit with it, feel it. Like that's the important message here.
Yeah.
Well, Cece, your last book. I am
Hey.
very excited. These lists today, y'all. I'm pleased as
Well,
punch.
I felt like I couldn't possibly show up and not talk about a queer YA book. I feel like that's kind of my brand, my everything. So that's what I brought here at the end. I want to talk about Ready When You Are by Gary Lonesborough. This was originally released in Australia as The Boy from the Mish, and then it was retitled Ready When You Are for, I think, North American release pretty recently. This is a YA contemporary romance that it feels like kind of a slice of life indie coming of age movie. There's just something very soft wandering around, figuring it out. Maybe some kissing happens. But we are following an Aboriginal boy named Jackson. His house is absolutely packed with visiting family members for Christmas holidays. And he ends up rooming with a boy who is staying with Jackson's auntie for a little while. And the two of them start to form a friendship that then develops into something a little bit more. But Jackson is really scared of the idea that he might be attracted to boys. He's dealing with a lot of internalized homophobia. There's a lot of just social homophobia that he deals with on a daily basis from friends, from community members. And he's dealing with that while also weighing the fact that he's feeling all these big, amazing first crush feelings for the first time. And it's a lot harder to rationalize something as being bad when you're not feeling all of these good, positive things, when you're finally feeling free and being yourself. I think this is a really gorgeous, soft book that is also about Jackson and Tommy reconnecting to their culture, to their community. There are different scenes of them going to their local community center, and I just think it's a gorgeous romance that is, of course, about the incredible community of people that Jackson has around him while he's dealing with something that might start to separate him from the rest of his community, which is a really difficult thing to process.
Okay, so you said auntie, and I was immediately like, oh, that reminded me of another picture book. So that book is amazing. And Cece, I'm glad I can always count on you to bring me more delightful queer YA to read. But I'm going to sneak in one last book for everyone here before we wrap up. This is Fierce Aunties by Laurel Goodluck and illustrated by Steph Littlebird. It's a joyful and vibrant celebration of what makes aunties so special from Indigenous author and illustrator team Laurel Goodluck and Steph Littlebird, inviting all kids to connect with the fierce aunties in their life. Who do you go to for advice and support, or when you want an adventure and a little extra courage, or when you need to find that warrior spirit inside you? Fierce aunties. Aunties come in different shapes, sizes, and ages. They all have different laughs, skills, and stories. They might be your parents' sisters, your older cousins, or even family friends, but there's something they all have in common. They're fierce, they love you, and they'll make everything better. Now it's my turn to cry just reading that. It's stunning illustrations. It's such a beautiful message. And how could I not include that?
I'm so glad you did, honestly.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah.
That sounds beautiful, and I love aunties. I'm an auntie myself.
Mm.
Or what we say in New Orleans, I'm a TD. That's what you call your aunt TD. And to me, I just feel like aunties really add to the mothering experience and help raise these babies. So I just really love that. And it's a picture book, right? I'm gonna have to go and buy that or get it from Libby.
Yep.
Somebody got it.
Yeah. Libby's got it, but also if you need a copy to like carry around with you for all the story times, you never know. And Auntie always has to be prepared. Well, Bre, Cece, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing these incredible Indigenous recommendations. I am so grateful to both of you and the vulnerability and the beautiful stories. Oh, thank you both.
No problem. Thank you for having us. I was really excited for this episode. So thank you for having us.
Oh, always and anytime. I am so glad. Well, now we'll transition to our outro. Goodbye, everyone. Well, y'all, what an incredible episode. I am so grateful to Angeline and Carole for sharing their experience, passion, and power with us today. Looking at the impact of Native writing and culture has been so incredibly meaningful to me, and I am, again, so grateful to the two of them. Check out an additional exclusive segment with Angeline and Carole over on LibbyLife.com. It was beyond amazing. I'd love for you to hear it. There's all sorts of podcast exclusives on LibbyLife.com, and they are free to access, so go check it out, as well as all of the other amazing things that Libby Life has to offer. I also hope you'll check out some of the resources in the show notes for more information on all of the things we talked about today. Remember, we can all make and embrace community, whether it's writing workshops or bowling leagues or book clubs. Community is important to all of us, and it is crucial now more than ever. Thank you to Bre and Cece for sharing incredible book recommendations and their vulnerability as well. Now make sure you're subscribed and following the show. You won't want to miss next week's episode when I'm joined by Jennifer L. Armentrout, Katie Robert, and Olivia Rose Darling to talk about the rise of romantasy. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Book Lounge by Libby on your favorite podcast app and check out the Libby app YouTube channel for our video content. You can also find us on Instagram at libby.app. If you're loving the show, a quick rating or review helps other book lovers find us. Want to contact me? You can email bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, happy reading! You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in Overdrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonso. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.